Hi, so this is the next short video in the series of the skeletal system, just for horse owners to learn easy anatomy and just a basic understanding of what lies beneath the skin of the horse. So today we're going to be talking about the neck. So the horse, like us, has 7 vertebrae in the neck, but because the horse's neck is quite long and the head is quite heavy, the vertebrae will start at the back of the skull, and then they will descend quite quickly along the base of the neck, and then the last vertebrae, the C7, will marry into thoracic vertebrae 1. And this base of the neck is called the cervical thoracic junction, and the neck is the connection from the head to the torso, and it also protects the spinal cord, and then it also allows flexion, extension, and also lateral flexion and rotation, axial rotation, not just for the neck and the head, but also it will have repercussions further back for the movement of the horse. So we're going to start at the top and we're going to work our way down, and hopefully this will help you a little bit, especially when we get to this one, because you'll recognize this as the pole. So this is cervical vertebrae 1, or what we say the atlas, or what as an owner you will associate with the pole. So it has a body of bone here, but then it has 2 big flat surfaces here, and these are called the wing of the atlas. And for me to remember anatomy, because I have to word associate to remember things, I would think this looked like a butterfly, and then I would think of a butterfly holding the world up. So I would remember the shape, and I would also remember the name because of the mythology of Atlas holding the world on his shoulder. So this is that one. And this will fit into the back of the skull here. And the joint between C0, so the back of the skull, and C1 is called the atlanto-occipital joint. And it's a hinge joint. So flexion and extension. It's really easy to understand it when we break it down. And then the next one is C2, cervical vertebrae 2, or axis. And you can see how it's different shaped. And you will see how the others are shaped similar, but these are completely different. And you can also see then how the vertebrae start to descend down the neck and along the bottom in like an S shape. And the joint here is called the atlanto-axial joint, and this is a pivot joint. So this is rotation. So we have rotation, we have flexion, extension, and often when your therapist will be checking this, they will ask the horse's head to flex, to extend, and to rotate as well. So what I will do is, if this is the skull, I will say we're asking for flexion, extension, and then slight rotation. So you can sort of see the action of the movement. And it has a little bit of movement this way as well. So if your horse is cocking its head and cocking its ear, it will have that little bit of movement as well there. So then when we come through to the rest of the vertebrae, C3 to C7 are very similar. And they only sort of differ in size. So as we go down, they get smaller, and they slot in a bit like this as well, like a jigsaw puzzle. There we go. And the joint in here is an intervertebral joint, which I really struggle to say. It looks like a ball and socket joint. That's the easiest way I can describe it. And again, this will help with flexion, extension, lateral motion, and also slight rotation. But then as we come down onto C6 and C7, so we've got C1, C2, 3, 4, and 5. Now C6 and C7 are smaller, and they are very similar in shape, but the one difference is that they start to get these little bony bits on top, these processes up here, because this C7 is gonna marry in, like I said, with T1. So you can see here how these all look very similar, and you can see the process is starting to grow. And this is where that cervical thoracic junction is, down here. So these are the most mobile ones. And then as we come in, I'll just show you this one so you can see the difference between 1 and T3. So can you see? This is more of one that you'd recognize, and this is very small and a bit of a mix in between a cervical and a thoracic one. But they're all very same. They all have like sort of very similar ones. So problems that can occur. So we all know about roll curve, we're overbent, but also if we're fixated. So often the enemy of the horse is not being able to flex and extend correctly. So if you're riding or doing groundwork and you're holding your horse in a fixed position in the neck, it's very difficult for muscles to stay still. So what will happen then is you will be coming into an isometric contraction. So the muscles can neither shorten, well, they shorten, but they cannot lengthen again. So how I describe it is if you're holding kettlebells out to the front and you can feel your muscles starting to give in, often just a little drop of the arm or a lift of the arm can often make the difference, and you can hold it for a little bit longer. So if you're riding your horse or working your horse on the ground and it's asking to drop its head or lift its head, it's just telling you the body can no longer sustain that position you're asking. You know, and hold a kettlebell out in front, you can't do that for very long. So we often try not to ignore the horse when it's asking for that lift. It's saying, can you just give me a break? And then also as well, when we think of the horse that maybe has been tied up and it pulls back, then this is the bone that's going to be affected, and often it's this bone, and then often it's this bone as well that gets, so it's the joints that get affected in between here. So excuse me, and these are connected to the occipital base. So when we think of the occipits and our eyes, you know, a horse that has pulled back just doesn't get a sore head. There's lots of other things involved. So it's often worthwhile, if your horse has a pullback, to then maybe get a professional in just to make sure that everything is all right around that area. And then horses that run into things can often shunt back, and you'll see the videos of horses where I've worked on where their necks are really short and then they've lengthened as we've released everything, because it has a ricochet effect. So even though the horse has stopped moving here at maybe, I don't know, C4, it might still be moving at C5, C6 and C7. So it'll create that ricochet effect. So the exercises that I like to give my owners is we want the horse standing as square as possible and lifting the base of the neck. So often if the horse has to lift over something to eat, it will be encouraging this base of the neck to lift. Feeding at 3 heights is really good because the horse is mobilizing the neck, especially that last one quite high. If your horse is eating off a tree, you'll see how it moves from side to side as it's trying to catch stuff. Having your horses have as much turnout as possible, that's really good because they're moving everything quite equally. Because we know about the studies, you know, like Sharon May Davis has done the studies about the missing lamella, and what happens there is that we have the nuchal ligament coming off the back here, but the top part is just only the funicular cord, and then we have the lower part, which is the lamella, which actually comes down from the funicular cord and like grabs the bone. So if this is missing at C6 and C7, then there is no support structure for the base of the neck. So often we think of lifting up. I have a little sternum lift video, which the horse can't lean into. That's somewhere on my videos that you'll see. We can ask for carrot stretches as well, you know, bending over, as long as everything's done at the horse's pace and the horse is not rushing or struggling, then you can, I mean, I don't know if you'll actually bend your neck, one way is always sore, but But yeah, there's lots of exercises on my YouTube channel, on my website, that can help you with things like that. So I thought I would just give you a little help about the bone structure, and I find it really fascinating how we can have so many different shapes in one place, but we automatically assume everything is shaped the same. Yeah, and I think next I'm going to go onto the skull or the pelvis in deeper, I don't know, but hope this helps. Bye.